I like that you dressed up like an anime nurse. It's so fucking porny. So, can I waste your time for one more story? I'm not a professional like these guys. I'm not very good at reading and looking at the same time. But I'm going to skip all of my schizophrenic notions and living with massive major depressive disorder and tell you one more rock and roll parable of my youth called Green Day, who put out an atrocious album recently. I met him one time, the singer, here in this bar, and I think he was actually sitting in a booth right here. I have a fear of famous people. I'm very, very scared of them, so I didn't say much. Maybe something like, yeah, you wouldn't know me. It had been a long 89 years since my days in high school, when now Deerhoof member Ed Rodriguez and myself had a band called Uncle Smooth. What naive strangers we were to this vicious game of hedonism and couch surfing. Back then, we played mostly basements and occasional Milwaukee club gigs. I was way more angry then, because grunge was just starting up, and it felt like hair metal was such a scam. Looking back at it now, grunge music was the biggest scam. The music street conned us into it as they were killing rock and roll, like reviving it. Like reviving a zombie back from the dead for one more whorish rampage. So anyways, in the summer of 1990, we were asked to play this Fireman's Festival in Watertown, Wisconsin. There was this genius promoter kid named Waterford Brad, and he somehow swindled the Watertown Fire Department to let about 300 of us rejects have a music festival in the park pavilion. My memory fails me now as to the entire lineup. I think there were like 10 bands. I know one of them was called Rhinelander, named after the beer, but actually from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. I have a hazy recollection of an Indianapolis punks were on the bill, but this was 18 years ago, so anyways, I do remember the headlining was a California band called Green Day. Green Day was a Lookout band, so that was pretty cool because Lookout was from California. And they put out bands like Nemesis and Operation Ivy, and my favorites, the Yeasty Girls. So Green Day was cool, so they would headline because they were from California and they owned a van. My band at the time was all frustration and odd time signatures. I was really crazy on stage. I used to be really wild on stage, mostly in part because I had seen Darby crash in the decline. I almost said the recline of Western civilization. It could be the documentary, the third part in the series, a documentary on slackers, like Pavement and bands like Pavement and fucking Superchunk. Somebody's gonna get rich. I'm already rich. He seemed to be one of the great punk showmen, Darby Crash, and I just played in a club next door to the Germs a couple weeks ago. They're not with Darby Crash. He died when he was like 20. You all know when Darby Crash died. I mean, come on, right? So I would hit myself with the microphone until I bled or flail around in the dirt or spilled whatever was nearby. A total spectacle, and I would always vomit after the show. It was my thing. Like Elvis had like a... Conan O'Brien has this. Well, in high school I would throw up after the show. I remember running out behind the stage during our set and coming face to face with all three members of Green Day, reading books in the back of their van, calm as can be. There was a lot of talk of the meaning of the word punk in high school. I think there still is in high schools. In the Milwaukee scene, I remember thinking, is that punk? Reading books in the back of the van? I don't know. What is punk? Looking back now, yes, it was very. Nonetheless, Billy Joe and company never had the privilege of gracing the Fireman's Festival stage that night. Instead, they played above an abortion clinic. But I'm getting ahead of myself. See, standing at the entrance of the festival was a giant, inflated Ham's beer bear. It must have been 30, maybe 40 feet tall. Shortly after our set, a bunch of fine young punks seized the opportunity to overthrow the bear with their knives. So down he went in 5 minutes' time, and another 5 minutes was all it took for the firemen to make haste and tell us to fucking vacate, man. You stabbed the Ham's beer bear. And Dwayne Demise got on stage. Dwayne is from the band Demise. In punk, you say the person's first name and then the name of their band. Like, for instance, Greg Anal Fist. You would say Greg Anal Fist. Got on stage and he's giving a passionate dissertation as the firemen are escorting the young kids out of the stage about the bear attack. He kept saying the same thing I was saying when I saw Green Day reading books. Is this punk? Seriously, is this punk? What we are doing, what, with the knives? It was a good question, and looking back now, yes, it was very. Instead of Green Day calling it a wash and driving the band onward to the next Watertown in Wisconsin, a girl came forward with an offer to play a show in her living room in her apartment above an abortion clinic. So the couches were moved, and the house show was arranged. Like I said earlier, I am in no means claiming to be an authority on the genre of punk music just because I saw the decline of the Western civilization once when I was 17. But this single event was possibly the most punk thing that I would ever witness in my life. Even more punk than playing Frisbee with Ian MacKaye on the 13 Songs tour that same July. Fucking Frisbee, people. And if it was cool, I'd say Ian MacKaye, but I'm not that cool because I'm not punk. But it was Frisbee. A couple of years ago, I saw Billy Joe. Never saw Billy Joel. I would like to. A couple of years ago, I saw Billy Joe walking around the Turf Club in St. Paul. I was introduced to him on top of the old stage. I don't remember what I said. I thought about talking to him and seeing if he remembered the story of the abortion clinic show and how the stabbing of the inflatable Ham's beer bear kicked us out. But before I got the nerve, he was gone. I suppose it was for the better, which reminds me. A couple of weeks ago, I was shocked to find myself standing next to the comedian Carrot Top on an escalator at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. I didn't say anything to Carrot Top either, but it wasn't for reasons of punk. I'm simply afraid of celebrities. Thank you guys for having me read what goes on in my brain and projecting like a porno star. Both of you, Paul, you too. Thanks, guys. My album comes out the 18th, and the CD release party is unfortunately not here. It's at this bar on 1st Avenue and 7th Street. On the 5th of September, please come. Thank you.
All right.